while the yardstick for success the world around is the kind of monies that you make, how would Ankur Warikoo define success?
How many consumers say that we love your product and we use it every day, week, month, and so on?
That's success.
That's success for me. I am personally the kind of entrepreneur that would be moved by scale and impact. So I would have never picked up something that was small in size. I would have never picked up something that had little impact. I'm nowhere close. But for me, the personal endeavor is always scale and impact. And that's why the number of consumers who are saying that we love using your product every now and then is, for me, the true measure of success.
I love the way that you are very candid about the fact also that Nearbuy is not anywhere nearby the final product that you'd like to probably have in the market. Would you want to share some of your failures?
Sure. I think so failure for me is a very strong word. I react not too well to that. So for me, failure is that we gave up. There are a lot of losses. Right? So I lose a race, which is very different from I failed in the race. Incidentally, last year, and sorry, it's a deviation from your question, but I'll come back to it. Failure is not celebrated in India for some weird reason. Again, I think it's an outcome of everything that were our circumstances when we were a young nation. So last year, I created a failure resume.
Oh.
Because our resumes are usually मैंने ये किया, मैंने ये किया. I converted it and it says, this place rejected me, this place rejected me, this is where I screwed up, this is where I couldn't make it happen, so on and so forth. And it went viral. I got a lot of very positive conversations flowing because of it, because we were like, no, for the first time,
people can relate to it,
exactly,
right?
No, we've seen you at this pedestal and you like this Ankur Warikoo and so on. We think you've done nothing wrong in life.
Correct.
But clearly there's so many places where
so that was an honest confession. I thought it was like hocus pocus.
It was absolutely like I tried 2 times to get into the IITs after my schooling. Didn't. Not even once. I tried applying into US universities that I wanted to, didn't get through. When I wanted to do my MBA, I wanted to go to the IIMs, I didn't get through. When I was sitting for my placements. Wow, you
don't need to be an IIT, IIM grad or a US university grad to reach where probably Ankur has reached. And
I think that's the message. No, it's like if you have it in you and you know that you're true to yourself, then no one can stop that force.
Right. And how wonderful is that, so that, you know, a large amount of people can actually relate to you, because a lot of times within your own constraints of the fact that, oh, I've been beaten and, you know, I'm not meant for it. And when you see somebody who you feel is successful, has been through the grind themselves and continue to do that, I think that's really cool.
And that it encouraged me. I've been writing a lot. I've maintained a blog now, which is in its 12th year. So I just chronicle my journey. I've learned a lot from observing people, reading. So I feel that this is my way of giving back, and that's how it's handled. But I'm extremely encouraged by how people respond to that. And it genuinely feels that there is a serious dearth of good quality mentorship and guidance in this country, which we were speaking about before we started. And it's just my small way of getting to there. So when I think of what have been the big failures while at Nearbuy and so on, I make this pompous statement. It sounds pompous, but I don't think I've ever failed in life, because I've never given up. I've never given up.
Because your perspective of failure is
very different. It's a state of mind. For me, risk and failure is a state of mind. It's not an absolute. No one can qualify risk on a scale. No one can qualify risk on a scale or failure on a scale. And I think it's in our head, which means if we have created it, we can destroy it too.
Right.
I remember when I was coming back from the US, I'd always wanted to do a PhD. And for the last 8 years, I'd been working very hard to get myself to do that. I wanted to become an astrophysicist, join NASA, become a space scientist, go to Mars. Everything was said, and my world knew of that. Like, my parents were proud of the fact that beta yahi karega, and all my relatives and my friends, school teachers, everyone knew that Ankur Warikoo will go to NASA.
Or go to Mars.
Or go to Mars. My dream was to be the first man on Mars. It still is. Hopefully will happen at some point in time. And I go to the US. It's 100% scholarship. It's the second best university in the country.
Wow.
I am acing my exams. I am on a fast track to my PhD. My professors say that if it happens, it will be really fast and so on. But 2 years into it, I figured that I would be good at doing it, but I wasn't happy. Something had changed. And I remember at that point of time feeling that I cannot do this to my own self. Because if I go through this, I will commit myself to something that will not make me happy for the rest of my life. So I took this call to come back to India. And no one in my world understood that. Understandably, because my parents were like, what are you even talking about? You always wanted to do this. So how can you suddenly in 2 years change your mind? And my friends and family, and no one genuinely understood what was going inside my mind. And at that point of time, I do remember being made to feel as if I was a failure for taking that decision. It's like, how can you give this up? You're such a loser.
Right.
But for me, it was risk and failure which didn't even feature in my mind. I was like, it will be a far bigger failure on my part to not listen to myself and continue doing it, knowing that I will not be happy.
Right.
And I came back, and I'm so glad I came back, because life took a happy new turn around that. But there are just so many instances like that. So you didn't
complete your doctorate?
I didn't. No, I'm a PhD dropout, which is now, by the way, a fancy thing to say. But back then it was like, oh my God, इसने क्या कर लिया अपनी life में? But now,
इतना पैसा खर्चा करके भी जाए.
Exactly, right? All these things. But today when you're a dropout, you like this cool thing. Everyone wants to talk to you.
But you know what? I think this also in itself has a few ramifications, because the other day I was having a conversation with somebody and they were saying that, it depends on what you want to draw as a source of inspiration from the mentors that you look up to or the role models. Because to say that Bill Gates was a dropout or, Steve Jobs was a dropout, but look at the other stuff that they did. Rather than you being just a dropout is not a stepping stone to success.
Absolutely. Like just being a dropout is not a qualification. It's just a step in their life.
Are we creating the right kind of role model, especially as far as the Indian scenario is concerned?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. And no one's to be blamed. So let's start with that. I'm not suggesting that they're bad role models. I think the pace at which the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem has shaped up has been far faster than our readiness to deal with it. So what's happened is, in 2, 3 years, 4 years, there's been this massive deluge of capital, ideas, startups, waves of shutting down and waves of opening up and so on. People don't even know how to deal with it. So the so-called role models are still figuring it out. So people embarrassingly call me a role model, and I feel embarrassed because I haven't figured my shit out right now. Like I'm still building it out, and it's gracious of people to think that I have something to offer, but in my head, I think of myself as an imposter. I think that someone will just figure that I don't know anything and I'm just here by some serendipitous sequence of events.
Are you?
Yeah, and then just figure it out one day, right? So that's my biggest nightmare, that I'm not meant to be here, and people will figure out that I don't have any content. So I think I wrote about this recently, that the thing that disturbs me the most right now, Suparnaa, is the media is selling this overnight success drug to people.
Right.
Case in example, I saw this so-called motivational poster which said, Usain Bolt has run for a total of 117 seconds in all the Olympics and has earned 119 million from it. So that's more than $1 million a second. And go and this is the...
How many hours has he sweated it out there in the heat?
No one's going to talk about that. No one's going to figure out what kind of a childhood did he have, or the struggle he'd gone through his training and the injuries that he suffered. No one. So people are like, boss, 1 million per second is like the coolest thing ever. I want to be there. And that's just such a wrong way of suggesting anyone what success is about.
Right. Let's get into your knowledge as far as startup jargon is concerned, and what your perspective essentially to the word freemium is.
Freemium is largely, in my opinion, a smart way to build a software as a service product. It's the fact that you would offer something as a bare bone, bare shell service to someone, call it a consumer, they will begin to appreciate what the product does for them in that small environment, to the extent that they're willing to sign up or pay for more services.
And does that work?
I think that works. I think that definitely works because one, it lowers the cost of adoption or experimentation. So people figure out what it is to use that product. And should the product be genuinely meaningful and offers value at its premium state or at its paid state, then enough and more people will sign up.
MVP?
Minimum viable product. Fancy term. I haven't wrapped my head around that, to be honest. It's what's the bare minimum product that you need to ship out so that consumers know what you're up to.
Correct.
So that it speedens the time to ship, it speedens the time to get feedback and so on. I think people get into the trap, and I've been a victim of that myself, so I wouldn't take myself out of the equation. It's very hard to figure out what an MVP is.
Okay.
Because as an entrepreneur, I find it hard to dissociate or be emotionally not attached to the fact that yahan tak pahunch gaye hain, why don't we build this thing also so that it becomes better for the consumer?
Right.
So the discipline of stopping at this point of time, or knowing when to stop.
Sure.
At least I haven't yet got to that point, so it's a little imaginary for me.
Bleeding edge.
I don't even know what that is. Bleeding. I know what cutting edge is. What is bleeding edge? It's like you're losing so much money that you're at the bleeding edge of startups. I don't know.
It's like we're gonna get there. Right now we're the first movers and we've got it all sorted out. But yeah we still.
and it's okay for us to lose large amounts of money.
Yeah, because we know what we're doing.
Yeah, because we're cool and so on. Yeah, don't endorse that. No.
Burn rate.
The amount of money that you lose every month. Simple. And it's not about accounting loss, it's about cash. So cash is truly the only thing that an entrepreneur generally should care about beyond their product. Because you need to have a very firm handle of how much money you're losing every month.
Okay.
And that's what the burn rate is.
Right. So if you were to give one advice to the Ankur Warikoo a decade back, what would that be?
Wow. A decade back, which is right after
2007,
your
very first entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah, so 2007, right about the time. I would, now again it will sound pompous, but I think this would, I would say that there are enough and more people who would say that the way you think is not going to work for you. Don't listen to them.
Okay. Don't listen to the people who are trying to bring you down and trying to malign the idea that you have. And
or just be naysayers. Like there are enough pessimists in the world. I'm an eternal optimist, and I think that works for me. I become irrational. I recognize that as well. So there's so many people who are saying, "क्यों कर रहे हैं? क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
PhD छोड़ के आ गया लड़का बताओ."
Exactly. मतलब क्या कर रहा था? क्या उखाड़ लिया? ये सब. And then it's like that's who I am.
Okay. Wrapping up the interview, what are the 5 apps that you can't do without as of now?
Okay. I use Nearbuy every week, so I'll start with that because I have to. WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Headspace.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I haven't heard about Headspace.
So Headspace is a meditation app.
Wow.
I took to it was medication itself. I took to meditation about around 9 months back or so, and it's completely transformed.
Wow.
Yeah, it genuinely has.
And it should be part of the curriculums in schools and colleges. I don't know why we're kind of, not giving it enough importance.
Exactly. So there was this, so 40 years back, if you told someone, I'm going for a run, people were like, who's chasing you?
Right.
Because they don't understand why people have to run.
Right.
Today, everyone's running.
Right.
It's suddenly fashionable to run. Because your physical health has become of paramount importance. It just shocks me how mental health is just not spoken about.
Correct.
Now, instances of depression, anxiety are
Absolutely.
so high in the entrepreneurial world. In fact, anywhere else,
Right.
it's considered a taboo. Going to a psychiatrist is considered
True.
to be a taboo, and so on.
You'd rather go to the pundits, right?
Exactly. And it's ki kuch kar do, yagna vagna kar do, phuk phak do, whatever the case is. And it's just crazy what happens. But it's science. People have established it that
Right.
just listening to your own self and breathing in and observing that, being mindful, is the surest way for you to be in control of yourself.
Right. One book that either you're reading or you'd like to recommend?
The book that changed me, which I read about 7-8 years back, was this book called Rework. It's by Jason Fried,
Okay.
the founder of this company called Basecamp.
Okay.
Fantastic book, very easy read. Lately, 2 years back, Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
Okay.
That was a brilliant book. Last year, the book of the decade was The Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Of course.
It
I'm
was
reading it right
such
now.
a fascinating story about how Nike was built, and you recognize then, oh my God, that guy went through hell
Correct.
for so long.
Right.
And we think, oh, Nike ki story to bahut
And
hi
scenario
fashionable thi.
1960s, starting out then.
Exactly. Like there was no VC money, there's no
Correct.
concept of that. Guy taking debt was
Right.
almost out of money every 2
Right.
months.
Right. So what, according to you, is the difference between the startup ecosystem in India as compared to the West?
I don't think it's a difference based on harder things like regulation, like ease of doing business, and so on. I genuinely believe that the fundamental difference between Silicon Valley and us is our inability to think of collaboration as a success tool.
Wow.
We are protective.
Correct.
Like competition for us is someone we have to kill, because
Wow.
again, going back to the same thing, that the only way you succeed is by killing someone. And I genuinely feel that it is disconcerting and it's disturbing how many startups and entrepreneurs don't share what's going on with them, and they don't sit and collaborate. They don't figure how they can collectively solve a problem, because India is a massive problem set to be solved.
Right.
And no one's going to do it by themselves. No one's superhuman. But it just surprises me that people don't want to work with each other.
Collaboration is.
And Silicon Valley, you walk in. You walk in into cafes, you walk in into startup offices, and you say, I need help, and people will help.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any qualms. They don't, everything is in here. And they know that no one can touch what's here. So what I say is just my wisdom, but you can't, just because, like a lot of journalists, I gave you this example, a lot of journalists ask, what's your P&L like? What's your profit? What's your top line like? And I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then how come you're so okay with sharing it? Because, and I say that, what's going to happen? Even if my competition had my P&L, they don't have what I have. They don't
Right.
have my execution.
Right.
They don't have my strength. They don't have my team. तो क्या कर लेंगे मेरा P&L जान के? ले लो. Yeah, at least that's what I think.
Thank you so much, Ankur, for taking
Pleasure.
your time.
Thank you so much, Suparnaa. It was a pleasure. Thank you for the questions and the interaction.